When you have 20 faults and you want her to be perfect, why should she become your spouse? You're being unfair right off the bat. Start with yourself.
What do you think most people get wrong in relationships?
Some youth, they say, yeah, it's about time. When I get married, my wife's going to treat me like a king.
Why don't you make me a sandwich?
That's far from reality. Jaafar, if you have ambitions and you want to establish a big business, are you looking at it, yalla, next week I'm going to start this business, wallah, I'm going to chill. You're going to work yourself to death the next 10 years before your business is going to flourish. Marriage is like that.
What are your thoughts on Muslim dating apps? What's your thoughts on Khirah when it comes to marriage?
I get maybe on average 10 per week, probably. Brother Jaafar, you'd be shocked how many times they have a meltdown. If you wanted it, why did you take a khirah? Your daughter is suffering. Haram, you're ruining her life. I know sisters who became suicidal because of very hard-headed fathers like that. And tomorrow, if your child fails in his marriage because of you, on the day of judgment, Allah will hold you responsible. Ya Allah, what do you mean? I wasn't even around for my child's marriage. Yeah, but you set the stage.
If you just look at the numbers on paper, it looks like this is a very bad investment. And 50% of assets and mahr on top of that. In spite of all this, why do you think people should still get married?
It does seem like a very lousy investment. The chances of survival and success are very slim. Yet,
this time of the year, we like fresh starts. We like to start new experiences in life. And there is no bigger new experience than getting to know someone and getting married and getting into a relationship, all these things. And it's a beautiful phase in life. But there's a lot of ins and outs of it. And there's a lot of discussions all the time about what's the proper way to do it. What standards are you setting for yourself? And especially nowadays with Muslim dating, you have Muslim dating apps. You have society expectations for you. You have social media. There's too many things that impact this special relationship with someone that you're supposed to live the rest of your life with. So in this conversation, Sayyid Mohammed Baqer, he explains a lot of these issues. He talks about the stuff that he sees, because you have to understand, an Islamic scholar a lot of the times, or most of the times, has these interactions with the youth when it comes to this topic. He has counseling. He does counseling for married couples or couples that are engaged. So he has a lot of real life experience on what's working and what's not working. What are people saying? What are people's concerns? So he is kind of like one of the best people to listen to this topic from an Islamic viewpoint. And I really hope and I really believe that at the end of this 2-hour conversation, you will have the right tools and the right mindset to tackle a new relationship if you're not in one, a current relationship if you're getting to know someone, and if you are in a relationship, if you are engaged, if you are married, you will find amazing pointers and recommendations and advice from Sayyid Mohammed Baqer that will help elevate your relationship in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in your household, how to make it successful, how to have a peaceful marriage. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. Like this video if you enjoy this conversation. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to give this a listen. This year is going to be filled with fantastic conversations, and it starts with Sayyid Mohammed Baqer Qazwini. And with that being said, let's get the show started. Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب بمدينة القدس العربية.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you, Sayyid Muhammad, for doing this. I appreciate you. Sayyid, I always like to start this off with self-introduction. And the philosophy is I can introduce you, but I'll introduce you the way already how most people already know you. But I think it's more special when you introduce yourself and the way that you see yourself.
First of all, it's my pleasure to be with you here on this podcast. If I want to introduce myself, I would say that I aspire to be a sincere servant of my faith, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be a good father, a good husband for my family, to be a good son for my parents, to be a good brother for my siblings, and to be able to serve my community. These are my life aspirations. If Allah gives me the tawfiq, the success to achieve that, I feel as if I have achieved my purpose in life. And yes, I'm a student of knowledge. So I studied sociology here before going to the seminary from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. It was a wonderful experience. They have a great sociology department, by the way.
Okay.
It's one of the best in the nation. And after that, I moved to the seminary in Qom in Iran because it's the largest Shia seminary in the world. And remember, back in 2004, when I moved to the seminary, the Najaf seminary was basically recovering after the fall of Saddam. Because Saddam Hussein almost decimated the seminary in Najaf. Now, alhamdulillah, the Najaf seminary is up and running. It's very advanced. It has about 17,000 students right now, which is, a great number. But nothing compared to Qom in Iran. They have about 70,000 students. So I figured the best place for me to go and continue my Islamic studies would be in Qom in Iran. So ever since, I've been a student of knowledge, and I've taken it upon myself to visit various communities around the world to deliver the message of Ahlul Bayt alayhum as-salam, because it's just the most beautiful message.
I agree with you. But you said something at the very beginning that I'm just going to comment on. You said that you're trying your best to be a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People will look at you and be like, okay, it's clear that your life path you went to the Hawza, you became a Sayyid, and now it's clear that you're spreading the word of God, and in that way you're the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But a person like me, like a regular person that never went to the Hawza, how can I also be a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can I?
So you don't have to go to the seminary, Jaafar, to be a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can serve God simply by obeying Him in your own field. So I'll give you some quick examples. Number one, earn a halal income. We have a beautiful hadith that states 9/10, 90% of deen, of religion, is in earning a lawful income. If you're earning a lawful income, you're not engaging in unethical, questionable business, or in fraud, or in cheating other people, for instance, or you're not investing in haram companies, you are actually a servant. God sees you as the best of worshipers. So the business area is a really important area. The second area is your family area. God wants us to be decent, humble in our homes. Some people, maybe if you look at their public image, they seem very nice, very warm, very welcoming, but they have a different personality in the house.
Right.
That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. God wants you to be kind to your parents, to your spouse, to your children. If you're doing that, you're a servant of God. Even if you've not been to the seminary, even if you've not read all those hadiths and books, and you've not, delved into the depths of the Quran. Being a servant means don't harm anyone. That's the definition of a Muslim. A Muslim makes people around him safe. If people feel safe around you, you're a good servant.
Right. Your path that you chose to go to the seminary. When I had this conversation with Sayyid Saleh, he explained to me the rich history of your family and Islamic scholarship, and he talked about your grandfather and how it kind of pulled everyone in and made you guys admire the path. And that's kind of how he personally found himself in this, like going to the seminary and studying. Was it the same for you, or was there something else?
So yes, my biggest inspiration was my grandfather, Sayyid Murtada. And I grew up with him in Los Angeles, because when we first came to the US, I was 7 years old. We went to Los Angeles. That's where he had built an Islamic school, a number of institutions. Seeing him and his dedication at that age, Jaafar, we're talking about the age of 70 at the time. Alhamdulillah, he's still alive and well. He's now about 95 years old. When I saw his dedication, his love for scholarship, how he would serve the community, he inspired me. I said to my cousins at the time, I definitely want to go to this path. By the way, my father, Sayyid Hassan, may Allah bless him, he never compelled me to go to the Hawza. He told me, Baba, I leave that up to you. You want to be a doctor? I'll support that. You'd like to be a lawyer? I'll support that. You want to be an engineer? I'll support that. University professor? There is absolutely no pressure on you to go to the seminary. I've left that up to you. Decide what you would like to pursue. So no one actually pressured me to continue this path of scholarship. But when I saw my grandfather early on when I was young, he truly gave me the biggest inspiration. And then and there, I knew that I would be going to this path after graduating from high school and college.
Why did you think pairing sociology with Hawza would be a good idea? Or was it like you just liked sociology so you went and did it? Or were you thinking long term?
No, I was actually thinking long term. Because when I was trying to decide what should I focus on, should I focus on psychology perhaps, sociology, any other field, I realized that Islam is based on our social dimension. Most of religion is how society functions. What are the factors that influence society? How do you give guidance to society? How do you present solutions to social dilemmas? So I was thinking about these ideas when I was, let's say, in 11th grade, my senior year in high school, and I figured sociology has a lot to offer. If I can better understand society, if I can decode society, I can better serve society and present solutions to social dilemmas. So that's why I chose the field of sociology.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I figured it would be something like that because it kind of feels like when med students, they're doing their pre-med, their bachelor's degree, and they usually choose something to pair with the application, with what they want to do later. So I thought that's a great idea.
That's how I paired it.
Yeah.
And then one of the best classes I took, Jaafar, at the University of Michigan, was a class entitled Sociology of Religion. That really intrigued me. The professor who was teaching the class was a former pastor. So he had that religious background. And in the class, he beautifully connected religion to sociology. I loved that class because this is exactly what I had in mind and what I was pursuing.
Right.
So this opened a lot of doors for me intellectually.
What's something interesting that you found in that class?
So one aspect that he focused on and he asked me to give a presentation on was women. How historically women have been treated by society, patriarchy and its history, and then how religions have actually played a role in that. He spent a few weeks focusing on that. Okay. And this is an area that all the religions have a lot to offer. So what is the position of, women in the religion of Islam? What does the Quran say? And then they had a lot of misconceptions too. They asked me about the wife beating verse, in class. Yeah. How do you justify that, or how do you understand that, or the inheritance or other aspects? So I really found that as a very interesting example that he shared with us. The role of women in society and how they've historically shaped society.
Wow. I almost forget that because we live in this community, we know that you're not, for the most part, that you're not supposed to hit anyone. Like, you're not supposed to hurt an animal. So what can you say about like your partner in life, right?
Right.
But then I also forget that the outside world looks at Islam and says those are the people that hit their wives. That's very sad.
So dispelling these misconceptions is one of my goals. When I went to the seminary, I realized that many people have not misunderstood Islam. So first, let's understand it from its texts, from its sources, and then let's dispel these misconceptions. So regarding the wife hitting verse, right? First of all, wife beating is a mistranslation. That's not what the verse says in Surah An-Nisa in chapter 4. Verse 34. Basically, what we understand from my research that I've done on this verse, and I'm really summarizing it.
Yes.
It's a very complex discussion, is that the word darb here is basically means to go on a strike. There's a problem in the family. There are signs of infidelity, right? Let's say the husband is sensing that his wife may be taken advantage by someone. She's not committed to the house anymore. So the Quran gives you a beautiful 3-step solution. The first one is عِظُوهُنْ, give them advice. And in Arabic, when you say maw'idha, it means speak in an effective way, in a nice way. Don't be aggressive. It's a positive term. Doesn't mean go be aggressive and yell at her.
Yeah.
No, it means try to solve it. Use an effective, creative approach to solve the problem. See what's bothering her. See what's pushing her to behave that way. That's the first step that the Quran gives to men, which is a very reasonable step. The second is, if it doesn't work, show her that this is serious. You know, turn your back to her, still sleep in the same room, but just turn your back to her to show her that you're not okay with this. This is ruining the marriage. This is affecting the relationship. And then the last step is وَضْرِبُوهُنْ, that the Quran states, which according to many scholars, it means go on a strike. Now how, you could ask, what does it mean to go on a strike? Now because the husband historically would spend on the wife, going on a strike means restrict the spending on her. Tell her that there's consequences. If you're going to continue, and I've tried my best to be a good husband, I've given you advice, nothing is working, then realize I'm going to take away some privileges. And the idea behind that is to get her to change that behavior, or if God forbid she has an extramarital relationship, to stop it.
Okay.
Now, some people challenge this, well, why can't he just, go to the court and raise that, let's say in an Islamic court, if he senses infidelity? Islam doesn't want such matters to be publicized.
Right.
So the Quran wanted the man to solve it at home. The Islam doesn't want the man to go in a court and say, oh, my wife is doing this or that. It's not appropriate.
Right.
So for me, when I took that class and I saw all these misconceptions, I was really excited to be going to the seminary and to understand these verses, their exegesis, the tafsir, the context, to be able to give guidance to people around the world.
We were talking a little bit about this. It's funny how we went from sociology to that class, to that specific example. We were talking a little bit before we started about how a lot of people this time of the year, I mean, this is going to be, inshallah, the first episode of next year. And I think that's important because a lot of people on their New Year's resolutions list have settling down, finding a spouse. They always have relationship-related goals. Now, but before I get into that, I wanted to ask you, as a scholar, do you also have like these New Year's resolutions lists where you're like, this coming year, I want to do this, this, this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when the new year comes, I think of what to do different this year. What is it that I want to achieve this year? Now, sometimes it could be a book that I'm, let's say, working on. I am working on a 6-volume encyclopedia on our Islamic beliefs, to go from, the existence of God all the way till the Day of Judgment, and pretty much the main beliefs that we have. How do we understand them? Where is the source from the Quran, from the Hadith? How have scholars understood that? So I would make a resolution for myself, I would like to dedicate a lot of my time towards this book, for example. So I do have New Year's resolutions, or let's say I'm working on some cases in Islamic law, because at the seminary we specialize in fiqh, which is Islamic law. So let's say I'm looking at a particular field, like interest, for instance, or organ donation. These are very sensitive legal discussions. And I would like to expose myself to the different scholarly papers written on it, the scholarly discussions, the opinions of the maraja and the ayatollahs in the seminary. So every year I do have a New Year's resolution to complete one of those fields, to develop experience and expertise in that field. Or let's say it's a book that I'm wishing to start, to finish it. Basically, these are some of the New Year's resolutions that I personally have.
That's a encyclopedia is a massive project.
It's a massive project. I started about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And I'm about 40% done with it. Let's say almost halfway.
Okay.
So I anticipate in a year and a half, I should be done with the encyclopedia.
In English?
Oh, yes. All in
Oh,
English. The idea was to present this to those who live in the West who would like to know our beliefs, whether it's our Muslim community, that's my primary goal, or, our fellow American non-Muslims who would like to know our beliefs, but with depth, like with richness and depth.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've been preoccupied with in Najaf in Iraq now.
That's so cool.
Pray for me, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
it's a big project,
inshallah.
but alhamdulillah, I'm achieving progress slowly.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, moving from that to the discussion of having the relationship goal on the New Year's resolutions list for a lot of people. First off, what do you think most people get wrong in relationships?
In terms of thinking about it, to start with, right?
Their perspective on
Their
relationships.
perspective. Now, I don't want to generalize, but based on my experience with a lot of youth who are thinking about marriage and to start the process, I think one fundamental point they get wrong is that marriage for a lot of them is this realm of your life that you go to settle down. So I've already had my difficulties in life, school, work, and I just want to now go, enjoy my life, settle down, and that's what marriage is for a lot of youth. And honestly, they're getting it wrong if you look at marriage that way. Marriage is not this place where you go and settle down and you're treated like royalty, like a king now. By the way, I hear this from some shabab, from some youth. They say, yeah, it's about time. When I get married, my wife's going to treat me like a king and I'll have the nice life. That's far from reality. In fact, marriage is an arena that God has given us to intensify our trial and training in this world. So I'm not here to discourage anyone from marriage, because really that's what God wants from us. God has given us potentials, and some of your potentials can never be realized except when you have a family, you're starting a family. So it's a path that all prophets want for us. However, it's important not to have this rosy image that now I'm going to settle down, I'm going to be treated nicely, and everything will be good. In fact, life comes with much greater responsibilities when you get married. Now you have a spouse to take care of, you have children to take care of in today's crazy world. That is really a big, big burden. It's a big responsibility. So when you think of marriage, think of it as this next challenge in your life, where you actually achieve your full potential, where you bring your strengths to the table, where you're willing to be strong, to be patient, to be competent, to make it work, just like a business. Right now, if you want to, Jaafar, if you have ambitions and you want to establish a big business, are you looking at it, okay, yalla, next week I'm going to start this business, wallah, I'm going to chill.
Yeah.
It's going to be easy. You're going to work yourself to death the next 10 years before your business is going to flourish. Marriage is like that. When you enter marriage, go with ambitions, with aspirations. Go with the attitude that I'm going to work harder. Now it's the time that I'm going to establish my investment, which is my family. So I think this is one of the biggest things that people get wrong. Their whole attitude about marriage is not a realistic one.
Wow, I didn't think that would be your answer. That's for the men say, I want to settle down and be treated like a king. What are the girls saying when it comes to this topic?
Okay, now if we look at the perspective of girls who are thinking of marriage, if I were to pinpoint one thing they would get wrong, is that today, Jaafar, we live in a society where there's a lot of emphasis on romance, on the emotional aspect of a relationship. That, especially for girls, when they enter a relationship, now they're on an emotional high. There's a man who's going to romantically take care of them. And you see, our popular culture is based on that, right? Hollywood, the singers. Honestly, singers, what do they sing about most of the time?
Romance, love.
Exactly. You know, sometimes I go on Google, I just look up the lyrics because, you know, music singing is haram.
Yeah.
But I would want to know what's happening in society.
Okay. No.
So let's say in the last year, when you have Taylor Swift generating so much, you know, momentum and attention in society, given that I have my background in sociology and religion, I really want to know, what is her impact? Why are people drawn to her? So sometimes I look up her lyrics just to see, what is she talking about? And honestly, most of it is about this. Yeah. It's about romance, relationships. He broke my heart. He betrayed me. He cheated on me. These are the main themes that are preoccupying the minds of many people. So I think a lot of sisters in the community, they are affected by this global culture, thinking that marriage is this place in your life where your heart emotionally is going to be at rest. Your husband is going to be romantic. He'll take care of you emotionally. It's just an emotional high that they look forward to. And we as Muslims, we're not against that. Islam does encourage men to take care of their wives emotionally.
And it's a part of it.
It's a part of marriage. It's a part of your iman. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, in a beautiful statement, he says, the more your iman increases, the more your love for your wife increases. Or the woman in your family, like for instance, your mother, your sister, but primarily your wife. That is part of Islam, definitely. But sometimes we just have to look at the reality out there. And based on my experience with a lot of failed relationships in the community and in other communities, the girls are, you know, shocked. They're very disappointed. That's not what I signed up for. You know, I thought he would not be aggressive. I thought he would, you know, just pamper me with his words. And I don't feel like he's emotionally taking care of me. So that's the biggest disappointment that they have. Now, I would say to them, when you want to get married, it's definitely nice to have that emotional connection, you know, that full romance. But you have to also understand it may not work that way.
Yeah.
Not all the time. So you are entering this marriage for higher goals. You are entering this marriage, first of all, to create a family in the future. That's your investment. Good children who will carry your legacy. Now, if I get that nice romantic side from the husband, okay, alhamdulillah, that's a plus. But that shouldn't be my entire goal from a relationship. Such that if I'm not getting that side the way I want it, right? Then it's a failed relationship. What is this marriage? I'm going to get depressed. I don't want this. No, there are other aspects of marriage that we can focus on. Now, of course, Jaafar, I'm not talking about abusive husbands. If you have an abusive husband who's abusing his wife physically, emotionally, that's a different story. Yeah. I wouldn't want that marriage to continue either. Either you fix it or it has to end. But sometimes girls have this expectation that, you know, the guy, he's going to maintain a level of romance throughout every single day, you know, with his behavior, with his words. It dies down after a while. It's not always going to stay like that. So just be aware of that. Just realize this is how life works. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you if he's not going to sustain those romantic words. Just focus on your priorities in a marriage.
Yeah.
I think a lot of girls get that wrong when they think of a relationship.
I think you can attribute a big part of that also is to couples generally compare themselves to the couples they see online. And
absolutely,
it's very, one of the most prominent pages online are usually couple related content. Like those are the most consumed, or one of the most consumed. So when you have people that are day in and day out, all they're consuming all day, let's say it goes both way for men and women that are just consuming this type of content of these couples that put on a show for 30 minutes a week. For example, if you account for everything, let's say 30 minutes a week, and how many of these accounts are there, and they're just consuming this content of, oh, look at what they're doing, look at what they're doing. Okay, so when I want to get married, my man has to do this, or oh, when I'm married, she has to do this stuff, or maybe that's what a good woman. And these guys are acting for the camera.
Of course,
they have it set in a very nice way. They make it look very nice.
But they're creating the expectations for people.
Exactly. The house is, let's say, they always take videos of the house that is spotless. The man expects that if I ever walk in the house and it's not this spotless, that means we're gonna have a problem.
Exactly.
You know. So there's all this, and I actually saw this last week, and it was an insane percentage. I don't want to butcher it, but it was upwards of 75% of relationships are happier when they are not on social media, but when both couples don't show each other on social media. And I was like, so these couples that are not doing these things and are not engaging in this war,
they're happier.
They're happier and privately. So a lot of it I will attribute to that comparison as well.
It is fueled by social media. That comparison you mentioned is destructive to our family life and the marital life because it's superficial. They're, like you said, they're acting. And even if it's not a show, right? Let's say you have a couple who are showing you their nice reels and their nice vacation. Look, they're smiling to the camera. But do you know 2 minutes before that selfie what they were doing? For all I know, they could have been fighting.
Of course.
2 minutes before and 2 minutes after. And then I think a lot of people, especially girls, they get this false expectation that when you get married, it's going to be that for the rest of your life. And then reality hits you. That's not the case. That's superficial. What percentage of people live like that? Seriously.
Yeah.
And that social media is having a very negative impact on people who do want to get married.
And see, like the way I view it is this stuff that you see online, it's parts of your marriage that you will have some of it in your marriage. But that's not the bulk of it. And
Correct.
It's not the point of it either. Like the point isn't to do funny trends all day and go out and be on vacation all the time. Like realistically, for most people, you wake up in the morning, we got to go to work, and we're going to have these vacation moments, hopefully once a year, maybe twice a year. You're going to have them, but it's not the aspiration of when's the next vacation. Okay, we came back. This video looked so. When can we do one again? It's destructive in that sense of it's not sustainable.
Absolutely. And one of the problems with that, one of the negative impacts this is having, social media, is that I feel like for a lot of couples, they feel like the world needs to see their life and the joy they're having with each other for them to enjoy it. So let's say you're sitting privately with your wife, nobody knows about it, you're having a good time. You're having a conversation, she made you laugh, you made her laugh, right?
Yeah.
That private moment, cherish it. That's beautiful. But what social media is doing to us, if the world's not seeing that, then are you really happy or not?
Yeah.
You have to showcase it to the world for you to enjoy it. And I think a lot of people are falling into this trap, unfortunately. You all have these beautiful moments in your marriage. Just acknowledge them.
Yeah.
And the world doesn't need to see them for you to experience them. But social media has been destructive, definitely.
I know in this conversation, we're talking about the New Year's resolution of getting to know someone in relationship, like your relationship goals. Another New Year's resolution that I know every single person has is getting in better shape, living a healthier lifestyle. And one way to do that is to invest in the right equipment that the best and the healthiest athletes in the world do to reach those goals. And one of those tools is Whoop. Whoop is a fitness wearable that is on your body 24/7. Whether it's on your wrist, it's on your arm, it's integrated in your clothing. It is designed to be worn 24/7. And what Whoop does, it tracks your sleep, it tracks your activity, it tracks your recovery. It tells you how well your body is performing throughout the day and what are the essential things that you need to take your body to the next level when it comes to maintaining it. And it gives you all the important vitals that your body needs to take your health to the next level. And because you're a listener of this podcast, Whoop actually has an offer for you. You get to test out Whoop for a month for free. You get to test out Whoop for a month completely free. If you enjoy it, you keep it. If you don't like it, you can just return it back. To access those 30 days, go to join.whoop.com/notfromhere to get started. And now, back to the episode. And this is the one thing that I wanted to talk about is setting standards, setting realistic standards for yourself in a marriage. And I want to start off with some words that I hear guys say that really upset me. And it's, I'll only marry a girl if she's 1, 2, 3, and these conditions are her being like perfect religiously, right? She wears very modest clothing. He wants her to wear a abaya, all these things. She doesn't talk to any guy. She's never been, I don't know, like she doesn't want to work. All these things, they'll have a set like this is my standard, he'll say. And I personally don't have a problem if that's really your standard. Then I think you should really look for that. But you can't have that standard and then you're the type that is always hanging out with girls
100%.
And you're not modest and you live a lifestyle that is very different from the standard that you have put for your wife. Because I there's this thing where you're going to attract the same person that you are. You're going to be in our culture, you might read it online, the halal haram ratio. Your partner, you're going to look for someone with the same halal haram ratio as you. So if you want someone with a very high in halal,
you have to be that way too.
You have to be that way too.
Sah.
You know, so it's that part of it, of setting standards, that upsets me with the people that I see. But I'm interested in knowing how you see setting standards in a relationship.
So now 2025 is coming, and let's say a lot of brothers and sisters are seriously considering marriage. What would be the first step in setting standards based on my experience and understanding? Here's what I recommend. Number one, when you're setting standards, before you think of your potential spouse, start with yourself. In 2025, begin by setting standards for your own self. If I want to become a good husband, a good father, inshallah, what does it take? What kind of qualities do I need? If I'm the type of person who doesn't communicate well, basab, I get angry, right? You can't really have a conversation with me. Start 2025, start working on that. Because I don't want you to get married with that attitude. Marriage is it's teamwork. You have to be able to communicate with your partner, right? Even if you feel like you've been wronged, you've been violated, talk about it. Give your spouse the chance to express themselves. So see what it takes to be a good father, to be a good husband. Make a list of like 5 qualities. Humbleness, you can communicate with me. That's a very important quality over here. Make a list of those 5 qualities and then begin by truly developing those qualities in yourself. This is even before you're thinking of the opposite side. Because you want to go into this marriage by doing justice to it. As you said earlier, if I am hanging around with the wrong people and I have all these faults and then I want a perfect girl for myself, okay, it's nice to wish that, but you're doing an injustice to her. Why should she become your spouse when you have 20 faults and you want her to be perfect? See, you're being unfair right off the bat. That's not going to be a nice marriage. You're going to oppress her. So at least be on an equal footing with her. You've got some good qualities, some faults. She's got some good qualities, some faults. Be realistic. So I think a lot of people, when they're looking at those qualities, you want a miniature of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. That's nice. I would love that. But Habibi, try to be a miniature of Imam Ali yourself too.
Yeah,
Then you
absolutely.
can have those standards. So in 2025, I really, recommend to my brothers and sisters to start with developing those qualities in themselves. Being responsible, caring. Sometimes we have a warped understanding of masculinity, right? You see it these days.
Of course.
You've got two sides of the extreme when it comes to this discussion. Being a man means you accept the responsibility, you're willing to sacrifice, and you'll make your wife feel safe. You give her psychological protection, emotional protection. That's a man. So develop those qualities that are going to make you that man. Once you have really worked on yourself and developed those qualities, you know what your strengths are, your weaknesses are, then you can transition to the next phase and see what kind of qualities you want your potential spouse to have. That's how I would start that journey.
That's very interesting. There's two parts of that where when they do have that list of, let's say two people get to know each other, and let's say the man has these 5 qualities that he's looking for in the woman, and maybe the 5 are there, they're attainable. They go and talk to each other, and then he starts seeing some faults. Now, the thing is, you have 2 types of people. You have 3 types of people. You have a type that will see the faults and be like, oh, can we work on those? Are they manageable? Is these things that can change potentially in the future if, like we discuss, and then they go about it that way. And then you have other 2 people that, as many faults as they see, they don't know when they have to leave this relationship and when it's not good. Then you have another person that on the first fault, I'm done.
That's it.
I'm
It's
out.
over.
Yeah, it's over. Although, like, those 5 main qualities that you were looking for, she has those or he has those. But then, the first thing, no, I'm out of here. Or they don't know when they cross the line and then they're just stuck.
Yeah, that's a very valid concern. So when you're potentially getting to know someone and you're examining their qualities and you're weighing them, how do you determine when to proceed and when not to proceed? Like, that's it. This is a red line. Too many red flags. I need to stop here. In order to navigate that, I recommend, first of all, see what your priorities are. What are the priority traits, characteristics that you're looking for in a spouse? So for instance, if my priority is I want a spouse whose priority is the family, the marriage, the children. Yes, she can be career driven, she can work, ahlan wa sahlan. We don't have a problem with that. But is her career more important than the family life and raising children? If I sense that her career is more important than family, honestly, that's a red flag for me. At that point, I would stop.
Okay.
Even if there's some other good qualities, in fact, many other good qualities, but I'm marrying someone whom I want to build a strong family with together. So if my spouse, their priority is their career outside the house, and the house is secondary, raising children is secondary, that's a red flag for me. That's a red line for me. Because that is one of my priorities. So develop your priorities. See what are your priorities in life. And then those faults, if they lie at the core of those priorities, at that point I would stop. But if they don't lie at the core of those priorities, I would tolerate them. Even if it's 2 faults, 3 faults, 10 faults. Who doesn't have faults? But you just have to determine whether that fault lies at the core of your priorities or not. If they do, I would be hesitant to go forward. If they don't, I would go forward. That's fine. We could work on them.
Yeah.
That's how I would navigate it.
I think it's important to communicate that if you see a fault and if you see something that maybe doesn't align with what you want, to communicate that with the other side. Like, hey, like there's this thing that you did, for example. Like, what are your thoughts on it? When you did that, what were you thinking? Why did you feel like it was appropriate to do this, for example?
Yeah, I would want to know their mindset.
Yeah.
And how they approach that.
A lot of times they might not know that they did something that was not good, or that maybe when they hear your perspective on it, they'll be like, oh, your perspective makes more sense.
And they're humble. They accept it. Right. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
But if they, but going with your example, but let's say he's arrogant about it. He gets defensive. No, he's not willing to take a new perspective. That's a red light for me.
Absolutely. Another
is respect, Brother Jaafar. A successful marriage demands a level of respect. Yes, I know we get comfortable with each other in marriage, and sometimes, we joke around, fool around. That's fine. You can add humor, you can add fun in your marriage.
Of course.
But there must be a level of respect. So for instance, if I'm getting to know someone, let's say a sister is getting to know someone, and she sees that he repeatedly insults his mother or his sister, that's a red line for me. I would still talk to him about it. I would bring it to his attention. Now, if he acknowledges it, he realizes it, and he's willing to change, alhamdulillah, that's good.
Yeah.
I would still continue. But if that's how he is, I would not want to live with someone who does not respect his mother, who does not respect his sister, because I'm next.
Yeah.
I'm the third one whom he's going to disrespect.
Right.
See, because this is a priority for me. I want someone whom I can live with who's going to show me respect. I want to live with a person for 70 years who's not going to destroy my character and repeatedly insult me.
Yeah.
That's a red line for me. So look at these priorities and then see if those faults lie at the core of these priorities. If they do and you don't feel like the person can work on them realistically, I would not proceed.
What's your thoughts on khirah when it comes to marriage?
So a lot of the khirah requests that we get is actually about marriage.
Okay.
I get maybe on average 10 per week, probably. Yes. 10.
That's a big
not
number.
10 khirahs. 10 khirahs on marriage.
Yeah.
If you add up all the khirahs, probably a lot more than that. So what's our take on khirahs? Now, different scholars will probably give you slightly different perspectives on that. But here's my perspective based on my understanding of how khirah works and the recommendation of our respected, trusted scholars. As a first step, work hard, do your research. If there's someone you're interested in potentially, do research. Go see if they have social media. Because if someone has a public, account profile, I would like to know what kind of activities they have on social media. What kind of comments do they leave? Because it tells you a lot about a personality.
Absolutely.
So yeah, do a little bit of digging. Habib, you want to live with this person.
Yeah.
I would want to know how they present themselves, how they comment, what they like, what their interests are. So social media can give you a lot of information on someone. If it's public, of course. Now, if it's private, you won't have access to that. So do research. Go in your community. Approach trusted individuals who know this person or know their friends. Try to do a little bit of digging. Try to get a better perspective of who that person are, of who that person is. And don't go by what you see from the outside. Because honestly, in the public sphere, especially when I know someone is interested in me, we become professional actors. I see this all the time.
Yeah.
Like we're at a retreat, and then a brother is interested in a sister, she's interested in him, and they're not being themselves.
Right.
That's the
Everyone's
reality.
on their best behavior.
Exactly. So even though those 3 days you got a good impression, but that was, a lot of it was acting. They were showing you their best. That's not enough for me. I would want to know more about them. I would want to approach their friends indirectly and ask their friends to evaluate this person for me. If I'm a selfish person, you may not know it just meeting me in public, but my friends would know it. Who've traveled with me, who've spent time with me. They know if I'm selfish or not, if I'm arrogant or not, if I'm humble or not. These are qualities you need to do a little bit of research to get at them.
Yeah.
So my first step is to do research as best as you can, appropriately, of course, quietly. If your research is very positive, alhamdulillah, no red flags, all the indications are positive, I would go for it. Tawakkal ala Allah. You're now at an age, you're ready for marriage. You've been asking Allah to give you an opportunity. Take that as the opportunity. Go for it. Honestly, I don't think a khira is warranted here. You can still take it if you want, but would I recommend it? No. And if your results were, no, you found many red flags, khalas, I wouldn't proceed. Sometimes, Jaafar, you're stuck in the middle. I see a lot of good indicators. I see some potential red flags, and I was not really able to get a clear image of this person. There's good qualities, there's some bad qualities, or some potential concerns, or I feel like something is being hidden from me. I'm just hesitant. I'm really stuck, reluctant, in the middle. I can't go either way. In that case, if you're really stuck based on your research, you've consulted some of your friends, you've really tried to figure out whether this is a good opportunity or not, but you're stuck. At that point, I would recommend the khira.
Okay.
Khira is for moments like that.
Yeah.
When you've done your part, you've done research, you're stuck. Even let's say if you're seeking to establish a business or get a position, right? You've been offered a new position at your job. People quickly, their first instinct is get a khira. I wouldn't recommend that. Look at the pros and cons. Wait, sometimes when you do a quick,
analysis on the situation.
It becomes clear to you, this is good, this is bad. So if you're really stuck in the middle, there are things you just cannot decode. You don't have a good understanding of what's going on, I would recommend the khira at that point.
Okay.
But only do a khira if you're willing to accept its outcome. Brother Jaafar, you'd be shocked how many times I've had instances where a brother or a sister takes a khira, and then let's say it turns out bad, and they have a meltdown. Sayyid, what am I gonna do? My life is ruined now. I was really hoping this is going to work, right? If you wanted it, why did you take a khira?
Yeah.
Take a khira if you are sincerely, between you and Allah, you're willing to accept any outcome. If it's bad, I'm not gonna go. If it's good, I'm gonna go. But if you're gonna have a meltdown, if it turns out bad, without it, khalas, don't seek it.
That's so funny. The metric that I use for myself personally is, okay, let's say outcome A is heads, outcome B is tails on a coin, and I'm flipping the coin. If the coin is in the air, would I want outcome A to come out or B? And if I really don't know which one, mid-air, while I'm waiting for the result, I'll do a khira. If I know, if I'm leaning more towards one side, I won't do a khira.
That's a very good metric that you can go by. Ahsant. You gave a very vivid example of that. Yeah, seek a khira when you really are stuck, you don't know what's good for you, and you just want divine guidance. But if you feel like your heart is being pulled towards A or B, then there's a compelling reason. I would go and explore it further. That's a good way of putting it.
Another part is, you said all this is before you start talking to someone, correct? This is before the approach? Or
You
this
mean
is
the khira?
Yeah, or even
No,
after?
of course it would be after, because before the approach, you really don't have a good idea of this
Exactly.
person.
That's what I was going to say.
So my recommendation is, make that initial contact, try to get to know the person a little bit. Don't be too excessive about it, of course. And then if the indicators are all good, positive, I would say tawakkal ala Allah.
Yeah.
Just rely on God and proceed. And if you discovered so many red flags, just do not proceed. But after getting to know this person for a while, if you're still stuck, you're like, I really can't make a decision. There are some dimensions that are hidden from me or not known. I can't figure out whether this person is good for me or not. Then I would take a khira. Yeah. So I would wait a little bit before taking a khira, not right off the bat.
Okay. Another part about that confuses me a little bit is culturally. So there's culturally in America and society, and then there's culturally in Islam. Like in Islam, we're supposed to get to know someone in their parents' house. If you want to know someone, You go knock on the door. I want to meet your daughter. 1, 2, 3, and then you get to meet inside of their house, and that is not, because there's this very bad word that is attributed to getting to know someone, and it's dating. So that is not considered dating. But if most people here, and I'm thinking about high school students, okay, they, for all these years, they went to school here, high school here, they're in these classrooms with girls, they've talked with girls outside, they've went out to restaurants, they've, as groups, they've like, this is just the culture that it's mixed. And now it comes to marriage and they're like, no, you can't actually go out with my daughter. Or she's like, no, we can't go out. And it's like a taboo if they're just getting to know each other. And obviously here I'm talking about good intentioned people that actually want to get to know each other. So how do people in those situations navigate it from an Islamic lens?
That's a very valid concern. In our modern society, it has really become complicated to get to know someone. On the one hand, you have families who are very strict. They might not give you the opportunity to get to know their daughter. They find it very offensive. You know, they might see it as a form of dating. But then realistically, how else are you going to know her? I mean, you need to spend a little bit of time with her, talking to her, see what her priorities are, see what her mindset is, see what his mindset is, in order to see if this is a potential, a suitor or not. So how do you start that? How do you navigate that? Now, we have two scenarios here. One is you don't currently have someone in mind. But let's say in 2025, you do want to get married, but you're just clueless. Like, I don't even know where to start. And then the second scenario is you potentially have zoomed in on someone. So let's go with the first example. So right now, there's no one in your life. There's no one that you're potentially interested in, but you do want to get married the right way, the Islamic way. What do? Imam Ali alayhi salam here has a beautiful example for us. Imam Ali, when he was the Khalifa, obviously he knows a lot of families. He has a lot of connections. But even before that, even before he became the caliph, he knew every tribe in Arabia. He's an imam endowed with knowledge, and he had a lot of experience. When he wanted to marry al-Banin, the mother of Al-Abbas alayhi salam, he asked his older brother Aqil, who was an expert in Arab ancestry and families and their history. That was his specialty. He asked him to go and make a recommendation for him. He told him, Aqil, go and find me a woman who comes from a noble background. They're known for their nobility, for their generosity, for their courage. Because Imam Ali is planning. He wants a son like Abbas to support his son Hussein.
Right.
Now, when I was contemplating that, I said to myself, well, Imam Ali, he knows more than Aqil. Why would you go to Aqil when you're the imam and you know who's good for you and who's not good for you?
That's right.
But Imam Ali is teaching me and you and everyone else in society. Go to an expert and ask them for tips and recommendations. Aqil was an expert. Anything you wanted to know about Arab families, he had the statistics there. So Imam Ali is inspiring us and encouraging us to follow the same path. Now, how do you apply it in our modern time here? So currently there's no one on your mind. The first step is go ask people who know, families in the community. And by the way, the first people I would ask are my parents. I know this generation, they don't like to do that. But Habibi, your mother knows a lot of girls in the community. Your father knows a lot of guys in the community. They've met them at events, they've had interactions with them. Just go and ask them, Mama, Baba, is there someone potentially good in the community that you've had a personal encounter with whom you can recommend? Sometimes your parents can recommend some very good people. Why is it that in our generation we've completely crossed that out? No, I'd never ask mom, I've never asked that. Why? They have experience. They live here, they know a lot of families. That's the first place that I would ask, honestly. If I don't really get some good recommendations, then I would go to community members who are active, who are well connected with families. I'd approach them and ask. So let's say there's a local youth group and you see one or two brothers or sisters, they seem to be very wise, well connected, get a private appointment with them. Tell them, I'm serious about marriage. My goal is in 2025 is to get married. Is there someone whom you can recommend? Introduce yourself. Let them know what your background is. And sometimes you'll get some very good tips. I personally know people who, alhamdulillah, have a very successful marriage now who got married that way.
Yeah.
They approached an elder in the community, a youth leader, and they basically gave them some recommendations. So that's like a second area that you can go to. The idea is, like Imam Ali teaches us, ask an expert, someone who's well connected, someone who knows families. That way, they'll give you some recommendations and then take the next step to go and know that person. But that's how I would start for those who have no clue where to start.
People almost don't want, they even arranged in a way has become not taboo, but people just don't like the idea of arranged anymore. They want that romantic story. They want to like bump in them and at your local cafe.
But Jaafar, how realistic is that?
Love at first sight.
Look, it may work for some people.
Yeah.
But until when are you going to wait for that? You're 25, it's 2025, and you want to settle down, okay? I'm going to wait for that Hollywood moment to come at a coffee shop where I bump into her. It could happen. But you might be waiting 10 years and that might not happen.
That's true.
Like, you have to think of it realistically. I know arranged marriages are, completely a taboo for us. But what I'm suggesting here is not an arranged marriage. Okay, maybe you could call it semi-arranged.
Yeah.
But the idea is just get some tips. Let your family, let your friends, let community members give you tips. And then you go and try to make some contact with that person. Approach them through their friends. Approach one of their friends. By the way, my recommendation is don't directly, especially for the guys, don't directly go to the girl and open this discussion with her. Because if she comes from a more conservative family, she might get disoriented. She might not know how to respond. She might be scared of her family. Like, why are you talking to me? You should, for instance, go to my dad. So my recommendation is find a friend who's connected to her. Through that friend, tell that friend, look, I'm serious about marriage. I really want to settle down. I'm just looking for the appropriate person. I've been told by some friends, family members, that this sister is a decent sister. I would like to make some initial contact, even if it's through you, through a mediator, that's fine, to see if there's some compatibility. If there's compatibility, I'll be a man and walk through the front door and go to her dad and propose. But I just want some brief interaction with her. I want to know what her priorities are. I'll tell her what my priorities is. If she sees that this person is coming sincerely, genuinely, through a friend, she will give you that opportunity most of the time. And then you can decide whether to proceed or not.
What if the other scenario where you already have someone in mind and you want to go meet with them outside of their house in the public? Does Islam have a problem with that?
Okay, so let's break this down from an Islamic perspective and then from a social realistic perspective.
Right.
Islamically, if there's a girl that you're interested in and you would like to meet her, just to ask her a few questions, to get a sense of her personality, you are allowed to meet her in a public place without the permission of her parents.
Okay.
Islamically, it's allowed. Yes, you need the parents' permission, the guardian's permission to do the katb-kitab.
Of course.
To do the engagement. But to know her, to talk to her, to ask her a few questions, you do not need her family's permission. You can set that up and do that appropriately, professionally, and publicly. So Islamically, I wouldn't have a problem with that if it's professional. They know their limits. They're not violating the laws of, engaging with the opposite gender. Because sometimes we get a little bit too comfortable. We start joking and, saying things out of line. No. We're assuming they're keeping this strictly professional. So as long as your conversation with her is strictly professional, you can meet her publicly, even without the knowledge of her family. That's the Islamic perspective. But then we've got the social perspective, the cultural perspective. You also don't want to do something that's going to backfire on you. So let's say her family doesn't know. and then somebody sees you at a library or coffee shop, and then the family's informed, you're going to have a messy situation to deal with here. So I don't recommend you put yourself in that situation, because then her family is going to have a stance against you. Oh, he's talking to our daughter behind our back.
backs.
And then they're going to distrust you. And then to rebuild trust is going to be very difficult.
Very.
So my recommendation is, if you have the good intentions and you want to be professional about it, meet her someplace where you're confident no one from the community is going to see you. And tell her parents.
Yeah.
Because if that happens, it's going to create headaches for you. Let's say that's not a possibility. Like anywhere you're going to meet her, at the library, at the coffee shop, somebody's going to see you. What would my recommendation be? My recommendation is get mutual friends, like a friend who's from your side, a friend from her side. And then in a more private setting, meet with the friends there. It could be your friend's house. And tell her friend that I would like to meet her in my friend's house. He's going to be there. You're going to be there. So it's not like private 2 in one room. Because I don't want people to publicly see us and then there's haki and rumors. I don't want that. So let's do it in a more private setting, but with the presence of trusted friends. And that way, we can meet a few times, get to know one another, figure out our priorities to see if this is going to work or not. I feel like this is the safest way. And in case somehow the word got out, at least you've got 2 trusted friends who were there who could be witnesses. They're like, no, this was very professional. We were there. It wasn't private. The families will be more understanding.
Of course.
I think this would be a realistic way to go about it.
No, that's a very good way of explaining it. What do you think the parents' role is with setting standards for their child's relationship? Like this starts from a very young age to where I was looking this up. If one of the spouse's parents is divorced, the chances of them getting a divorce increases by 50%. If both of the spouses have divorced parents, their chances of getting a divorce is 200%.
Wow.
It goes up by 200%. So it almost starts with what is the image of marriage that the parents are implementing in their children. And that starts at a young age. That starts at those fights where you yell at each other and in front of the kid, you're like, he doesn't even understand what's happening. It doesn't matter. It starts, I feel like when I read that, I'm like, okay, so everything matters. There's not one situation that you can say, no, this doesn't matter. Like the child will be fine. He'll forget it.
Children are like a sponge. Everything we do as parents, they're observing it, they're internalizing it, and it's affecting them. Every fight you have in front of those children is actually creating an expectation for them in the future. And that's why parents have to be very, very sensitive and very careful how they behave in front of the children. Your children are observing everything you do. Everything you do. If it's negative, they're going to carry that negativity. If you're being toxic at home, they're going to carry that toxicity. So this really adds a lot of pressure and responsibility on parents to be decent in their homes. But even before your children, I say do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be decent, not because you want to act and be decent in front of your children. Be a decent person. Jaafar, we live only once in this life. Why would I live a toxic life? Who have I served by doing that?
Your
Honestly.
ego.
Exactly.
That's
Your
the
ego, and your ego is going to destroy you. So be a good role model in your house. The word choice that you use. One of the most beautiful hadiths we have about the Ahlul Bayt is Hadith al-Kisa. You're familiar with it,
Yes.
right? The reason why I love this hadith is because it paints to you a picture of how the Ahlul Bayt would address one another in the house. So the hadith starts with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He's a young boy. He goes into the house. Assalamu alayki ya ummah. Peace be upon you, O my beloved mother. That's beautiful when a child speaks to his mother like that. And then look at the warmth that she gives him. Wa alayka salam, ya habibi, wa ya qurrata ayni, wa ya thamarata fuadi. And peace be upon you, O flower of my heart, O light of my eyes. And then he notices something nice in the house. There's this fragrant smell. Mother, what's this fragrant smell? I love it. It reminds me of my grandfather. See, if people in the household can speak positively like that, you'll have a healthy family. Why do you think Imam Hussein and Lady Zainab passed those trials on the day of Ashura? You think it was random? It was because Imam Ali and Fatima raised them like that when they were children. They observed how Imam Ali would speak to Fatima alayhi salam, how Fatima alayhi salam would speak to Imam Ali alayhi salam. So we as parents, we have to watch every single move and how we speak to one another. In fact, how you even look at your spouse. If you look at your spouse with a grudge, with disrespect, your children are seeing that. And tomorrow, if your child fails in his marriage because of you, on the day of judgment, Allah will hold you responsible. Allah will have a huge list of sins. And one of the sins is you ruined your child's marriage. Ya Allah, what do you mean? I wasn't even around for my child's marriage. Yeah, but you set the stage. You're the one who put your child on that negative path, unfortunately. So this really comes with a lot of responsibility. And in 2025, as you think of marriage, I really invite my brothers and sisters to think about this as well. Right now, develop your character and your qualities to be a good dad, to be a good mom. Because if you want to postpone it, later I'll deal with it, that day will never come. Work on it right now. Enter marriage with a proper attitude, mindset, and then Allah will, bless you with a wonderful family.
What about people that are already in marriages that want... So the thing is, this is also, you mentioned it at the beginning, is when you get in a marriage, you want to settle down. And settle down in a way, you can translate it to being complacent. I don't have to do. I already did the hard work in impressing her and getting her to marry me. We did the katb-kitab, we did the wedding, we went on the honeymoon. I did all these things that I'm supposed to do. Now I'm not supposed to do anything anymore. And like you said, if you have a business that you're working on, you're not going, like, the day the business opens, you're going to be like, all right, I already built this place out. It looks so nice. Now I'm not going to stop working. No, it's actually when you start working. It's now this is where it gets serious. And so, and it's always increasing the amount of work that you have to do. It's never, okay, now I can stop putting effort into this. So do you see that at all? That people stop putting in effort after marriage and they let themselves go?
Definitely. I see that all the time. A lot of people work hard, whether it's navigating school or establishing a career, and then they start the marriage process. It's stressful for a lot of people in the community. And then finally, things work out. They do the katb-kitab. They run through bumps here into bumps there, but then they overcome that, and then the wedding, and then now finally, like, okay, now I can breathe.
Yeah.
Khalas, I'm in my house. I've worked really hard to get here. Now I have a good salary. I have a career. I met this person. We did the most beautiful wedding. Yalla ba'du. What do you want from me? That's a wrong attitude. Like you said, Jaafar, with the business. Now you have a nice building. It's a beautiful place. You just opened up your business. But now, what's on your mind is, I now need to establish good customer service. I want people to give me good reviews. That's exactly how it works with your wife, with your husband. Now that you started this marriage, make sure that both of you are satisfied with one another. You need to maintain that every day. Every morning when you wake up, tell yourself, how can I be good to my spouse so that every single day she stays interested in me? Yes, right now you love each other. But after a while, if you keep abusing each other or neglecting each other, that love is going to dissipate. That love, don't take it for granted and think it's going to stay there for the rest of your life. Just like a business, make it grow. And so this idea that now I don't have to do any hard work, that's honestly a wrong mindset. Now that you're married, make sure that you improve the quality of the relationship every single day. In a business, don't you want to make more money every day? Don't you see that as success? Why don't you see that in marriage? In marriage, if tomorrow my love increases for my wife and her love increases for me, and we're more positive with one another, the spiritual reward is immense over here. Don't be content with your current state. I'm married, alhamdulillah, we love each other. That's great. Build on that.
Yeah.
Make tomorrow a better marriage. So it's something that you have to definitely keep working on.
One thing that's, I mean, it's not so much as the way they treat each other, but it's a trend you'll see is like the man will go work out every single day before getting married,
Right.
trying to
To
get
impress
in shape,
her.
to get in shape, and then as soon as he gets married, he just lets himself go, and then
Because he got what he wanted.
Yeah. yeah, and it's kind of like, why are you? And obviously, we all know how important it is to stay in shape, to stay healthy, just in general. So why, when you're in the most important phase of your life, the marriage, the you have to work harder now, you have to work inside the house, you have to put the effort inside of the house with your kids, play with your kids, why now you decide that you're gonna let go on your health just for the looks? It's hypocritical in a way, the way we think. I don't think it's intentional, but I don't know, we
No, it's probably not intentional. I mean, it's just natural human behavior. When you covet something, you're really looking for something, you're going to make an effort.
Mhm.
But the problem is, what we're missing here is, now that you got married, now you started this business, so to speak. I don't want to compare marriage to business, of course.
As an institution, I like to
This
call it.
institution, as Islam calls it, it's
Yeah.
an institution. Now that you started this institution, now really you have to grow it and sustain it. So every single day you need to have a plan for yourself. How am I going to improve the quality of this marriage? And how am I going to defend this marriage against setbacks? Today, when you look at the divorce rate, over 50% in a lot of communities, that really is a warning sign that you're next. The chances of you getting divorced in the upcoming years is 50%.
Yeah.
What are you doing today to safeguard yourself from that? That needs a plan every single day. So don't get complacent and say, khalas, I don't really need to do anything. I already did the hard work. You need to save this marriage, maintain this marriage.
What are some practices that you found that work for maintaining that marriage? Because you're right, absolutely. If you want to grow something, you need to have a plan for it. I need to do 1, 2, and 3. But what are these 1, 2, and 3? Like practically, like what am I supposed to do?
So some recommendations, if I really want to safeguard the marriage and protect it from failure, based on my experience, I would focus on the following. Number 1, never engage in character assassination. When you have a misunderstanding with your spouse, you're upset, you feel wrong, you feel violated, whatever it is, talk about the action. Tell your wife, for instance, this action that you did was very hurtful to me. Can we talk about it so this doesn't happen again? Talk about the action. But normally, what do we do in a marriage? We start engaging in character assassination. You attack her, you destroy her morale, you destroy her character. Then she will not be able to heal. She will not be able to work on the mistake, let's say, she did. So one of the best pieces of advice that I can give for any healthy marriage, never engage in character assassination. Don't question her character and her entire existence, or his character and his entire existence. Talk about the action objectively and work on it. I would be much more willing to talk with you if I have a fault and you tell me, Sayyid, this action that you did, this fault, can we talk about that and see, why you did it and it had some negative consequences? I'm willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
But if you come and attack me, Sayyid, you're this, you're that, and you put all these labels on me and you try to destroy my character, at that point, I don't have the emotional energy to even discuss this with you. I'm going to shut down. That's human nature. So every single day in your marriage, be careful how you address these issues and never engage in character assassination, no matter what.
Unfortunately, it has become it becomes this thing where if you wronged me, my mentality is, okay, now I have leverage over him. So now I can speak in this way because I'm 100% sure he did something wrong.
Ahsan.
We don't look at it in the terms of, no, like this person in the house, this is my partner.
It's a team.
Like we're
It's
a
a
team.
team.
Like we messed
It's
up.
not me versus him.
Exactly. It becomes very competitive. And like you said, when you attack someone, the other person is going to become very defensive. They don't want to talk. They don't want to engage in this. And it's sad because you mentioned this in the beginning. We like to have this romantic idea of marriage, but when you do these character assassinations, it's quite the opposite. So why aren't you carrying the same energy forward when it comes to your problems? Or is it just the good times you want it to be romantic, but in the bad times, now you want it to be destructive? Yeah.
That's a very valid point. So that's the first recommendation I have. The second recommendation I have is regularly, frequently show appreciation for each other. Too often in our marital life, we forget to express it. Now, maybe in your heart you do show appreciation, but express it. When the husband expresses to his wife how much he appreciates what she does, and she does the same, you maintain a healthy relationship. And in fact, it removes all the negativity. Many times, Brother Jaafar, I've heard from both sides, but especially women, that I was having a rough day. It was so difficult. I had built up all this negative energy. But then, with one word, he came, he appreciated what I did. He thanked me from his heart. He removed all that negativity. What does it take? 30 seconds, a minute to show appreciation? Every single day, make it a goal. Set up reminders on your phone. Literally, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Set up reminders. Today, when you go home, after work, after school, or when you wake up in the morning, just show appreciation and gratitude for your spouse. It goes a long way in solidifying the foundations of your marriage and removing any negativity. And don't say, yeah, of course I show appreciation. Say it. I wake up at 6 a.m. I work myself to death to bring food to the table. Is that not appreciation? Yes, it is appreciation. But it's not enough. Just say it. شو بتخسر? What are you going to lose? What are you going to lose? Just say it. Show it. So this is really a very, very important point, which is constantly showing appreciation to one another. This will ensure your marriage will be healthy.
A lot of the things that we're mentioning relate back to ego, because you said, what's with it's 30 seconds. So really, if you think about it, 30 seconds when you come home to give that appreciation, it doesn't take, you're not putting that much effort, right? But I feel like when people think about this stuff, they think about as an ego thing, like the leverage again. Like now, again, you have leverage because I just admitted that you did all these things. So maybe now you view yourself as a little higher today. So no, I don't want that. So I'm not going to give the appreciation. And this is subconscious, on a subconscious level, obviously, this will happen. So I think it's the ego that really stops us with doing a lot of these things that you're talking about.
That's very true. It's the ego that stops us. But here's how we can overcome it. Even aside from like the spiritual factor and the fact that Allah is going to reward you for humbleness. When you're working, let's say you have a position at a very important company and you really want to keep that position, and you get this nasty customer who has an attitude. If you really want to maintain that position and get a promotion, how are you going to deal with that customer, Jaafar?
Very positively.
Why?
Because I want to prove at that moment where it's very difficult that I pushed through it and I'm a good employee.
So how did you control your ego at that point?
Yeah.
See, because you did a benefit analysis. You're like, look, inside maybe I want to kill this customer for being so rude and nasty. But I'm not going to be emotional. I'm going to use my intellect here. I have a goal. I need to get promoted. I need to keep this position. So right now, if I'm going to be positive with this customer, my managers are going to love it. The company is going to appreciate that. Take that same concept and apply it in your house. Your house is more important than your job. You can replace your job. Who cares? You'll still make money.
Right.
But don't think you can just easily replace your family. Our families are irreplaceable. So even if you feel that ego instigating you, just tell yourself, look, you're the one who's benefiting.
Yeah.
If right now I show my wife positivity, I'll have a good life. I'll sleep at night peacefully, and I'll have better children. So anytime you become positive, you're the first benefactor of that.
Yeah.
So that would be my second recommendation. The third recommendation I have, Brother Jaafar, for how to maintain a positive marriage is have some small spiritual moments with each other. It really goes a long way in keeping you close. For instance, it's Laylatul Jum'ah, Thursday night. You're not going to the Jami', fine. Sit with your wife, a few minutes. You don't even have to read all the dua, kumail. It's okay.
Yeah.
10 minutes, 5 minutes together with your wife, dim the lights, recite dua kumail together. Do that occasionally. That spiritual bond will give you strength in the marriage, and it will increase your love. And it will allow both of you to be patient and to tolerate one another in case there's some faults.
Yeah.
So just find some special time. Pray jama'ah at home. You, the husband and the wife, you two, it's time for salah. Pray jama'ah at home. That's beautiful. Do some dhikr together. Go out on a nice nature walk and just remember Allah together by saying Subhanallah, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. These small spiritual acts are profoundly effective in keeping a marriage healthy.
You know, I never thought about that stuff until not too long ago. I had Chunking on the podcast, and he reverted recently. Him and his wife recently reverted to Islam, and he said that they almost always try to pray together.
Beautiful.
And when they do that, they find it very difficult to be upset at one another because they know that Maghrib is coming up and they have to pray Maghrib together, and they can't stand and pray to God if they know that they're upset at each other. So it kind of really
that's a beautiful way of looking at it.
It really hinders their ability to be upset at each other a lot of the times.
That's a great example. So praying together, doing spiritual acts together, especially later when you have children, get them involved as well. Do some spiritual moments. It's very beautiful.
Yeah. I want to know, see all the things that we talked about, and we mentioned multiple times that a marriage in some ways is like a business. But now you look at divorce rates, they're 50%. We mentioned the stat that if one of your spouse's parents is divorced, that's another 50% increase. Both of your parents divorced, it's a 200% increase in the chance of you getting divorced. So if you just look at the numbers on paper, it looks like this is a very bad investment that I'm going to right? Like if you see the numbers and what's going on and the trends and all this, you'll be like, this is a very bad idea for me to, like, it's just such a headache, it looks like. And 50% of assets and mahr on top of that, and all these things are happening. Why? But in spite of all this, why do you think people should still get married and should still push for that relationship?
So with all these setbacks and all these statistics, it does seem like a very lousy investment. Why should I subscribe for something like that, right? It's nothing but a headache.
Yeah.
The chances of survival and success are very slim. Yet, why should we still approach marriage? And why does Islam still recommend us to get married despite all of these challenges? I'll share these points to get some perspective on why we should still proceed. Number one, when you look at society and startups and businesses in society, by the way, a lot of startups fail.
Yeah.
Today, you look at successful companies and you think every company out there is successful. No, that's not the case. A lot of businesses, they fail in that first year, in that second year. But does that mean that you should not be ambitious and aspire to establish a good business? Of course not. So failure is part of life. You'll fail once, twice, 3 times before achieving success. All those successful people out there you see in the world, if you look at the first part of their lives, they had a lot of setbacks. But what differentiates them from others is that they didn't give up. Even if I fail 10,000 times, I'm not going to give up. Eventually, you will achieve success. Marriage is no exception. Some marriages will fail. But it doesn't mean that you should not attempt to secure this investment, because the returns are massive. The greatest investment, the eternal investment a human being can ever make is his family, because it will outlive you. When we die and we're put 6 feet under, we have to sever everything from our lives. My business is gone. My social media account, my fame, my reputation, none of that's going to benefit me in my grave. The only thing that's going to benefit me until the day of judgment for eternity is a good family. Because every time your children do something good, you get the reward for it. Or God forgives you because of them. Once Prophet Isa alayhi salam was walking with his disciples, and they passed by a grave. Prophet Jesus alayhi salam, he told his disciples, this man in this grave is being punished right now because of all the crimes and sins, let's say, he committed. Next year, they passed by the same grave. Prophet Isa alayhi salam told his companions, the punishment has been lifted from this man. He's no longer being punished, even though he deserved punishment.
Yeah.
They told him why. He's like, because his son has matured, and his son did a humanitarian act. And it was a very simple act. What did he do? There was a hole in the ground, like a pothole, right?
Yeah.
He fixed it. That's all. Because of the good humanitarian act of his son, Allah forgave his father. That's profound. Jaafar,
Wow.
which investment can do that for you? You're long gone from this world and you get all this reward. Allah forgives you through your children, through your grandchildren. Every time your son or daughter does something good, you get credit for it in the eyes of Allah. Allah will give you a percentage of that credit. So honestly, when the yields, when the returns are so high, it's worth that risk.
Yeah.
It's worth it. How else are you going to generate that much hasanat and that much forgiveness? And that's why Prophet Ibrahim a.s. was obsessed with his progeny. Every time he'd ask Allah for something for himself, he would ask for his progeny, for his children. Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salah wa min dhurriyati. Allah, make me amongst those who establish prayers, and my children, and my children. He literally was obsessed. And he asked Allah to give him a good progeny. Allah answered his prayer, and he made Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt from his progeny.
Yeah.
That's how Allah honored him. Because Ibrahim realized, this is my eternal investment. So despite all these challenges, I still recommend you to go for it. To try to make this work, because the returns are so great. And by the way, if every morning you wake up in your married life and you just remember this investment and how significant it is, honestly, you'll have a successful marriage. We have failed marriages because we don't realize that this is your main investment.
Yeah.
This is the most profound investment you'll ever make in your life.
Okay, so what you're saying is, rather than being fixated on the I need this, I need that, I want this to work in the ways that I have it in my head, whatever perception I have in my head, why don't I, it's not why don't I have to think about this as what's the purpose of you on this earth from the start. And it's Yawm al-Qiyamah, going to heaven, and then the best investment that you can make to make sure that you get there is having a good family.
So that means we have to zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, zoom out.
Look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
See where you fit in this life, what your purpose is. And a good marriage is really what can allow you to achieve that purpose. I think once you zoom out and see it that way, you'll definitely be more motivated to keep a healthy marriage.
What does God see as a successful marriage?
So the Quran in Surah Al-Rum gives us the vision of a successful marriage. One is that the Quran tells us, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of his signs is marriage. And what's the purpose behind marriage? Sukoon, tranquility, peace. In God's eyes, a successful marriage is one in which the husband, when he's with his wife, when he spends time with her, when he sees her, he feels at peace. He feels tranquility. Sukoon, tuma'nina. When the wife sees her husband, she feels at peace. Because life is very difficult, Jaafar. There's a lot going on out there in your social life, in the world of business, politics, here and there. And we fall, we crumble. Allah wants your home to be that safe haven where you go to. and you feel at peace. That's a successful marriage. If you have peace in your house, you're very successful in God's eye. But some of us, bil'aks, you go home and the triggers begin.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, you are raising righteous children. God expects this from every successful marriage. Number three, marriage is a place where you learn how to step on your ego. Because in your marriage, you have the greatest opportunity to show your ego.
Yeah.
Outside, there's a lot of restrictions and consequences. Inside the house, you think you can get away with it. If I abuse her today, if I show her who's the man, if I can get away with it. But that's your trial. Allah wants to see you, okay, you really claim to be a good person? You really claim you want to earn heaven? Yallah, let me see. I'm going to have this marriage where she's going to say something, and then I want to see your reaction. How are you going to respond to her? Let me see your iman right now. Let me see how you manage your anger. That's what Allah wants to see in a marriage.
It's crazy how we've grown up to understand this stuff very differently. Like if someone thinks about their spouse saying something that bothers them, the first response is what you just said. I'm going to show her who's boss. I'm going to scream even louder, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. But I don't think we think about it in the terms of, okay, God is testing you. If this event is happening in your household, it doesn't mean that you have a bad wife and you have to charge towards her. No, this is a test from God. He wants to see how you're going to behave in this situation. And I really think that's a missing part of our perception of marriage.
And that's the biggest trial. The biggest trial in your life is in your house, not outside. So don't underestimate this trial. If today, let's say your spouse was not being too positive, she or he was being negative, and you were able to manage that positively, honestly consider that as a big success. Give yourself credit. Be humble about it, of course, not arrogantly. But don't underestimate it. Tell yourself, today when I passed this trial, and I could have reacted very negatively, but I didn't, I passed this trial. That moment is more valuable than all your prayers. A moment of anger when you're about to seek revenge or retaliate through words, but you stop yourself and you don't, the reward Allah gives you in that moment is far greater than years of prayer and fasting.
Wow.
Just acknowledge that. Just acknowledge that to keep you motivated. Because, look, a lot of people can pray and fast. It's not the biggest achievement.
Yeah.
But in those moments when you can say no to your ego, then it demonstrates whether you truly have faith and whether you're really a man or not.
Yeah. Wow. What are your thoughts on Muslim dating apps?
They've become a lot more and more popular, and a lot of people do ask about them these days. I do know some people who did get married through them. I'm not totally against them. I do understand they are serving a need. There are a lot of people out there who simply don't know how to get to know a potential spouse, or they just don't have the opportunity. And sometimes this could serve as an opportunity for them. If the app is developed professionally, they have a mechanism to kind of, filter out any bad actors, I'm not totally against it. I would just use it as a last resort. So let's say I've asked mom and dad, I've asked community members, I've attended some local events to perhaps get to know someone. It could be a community event, a retreat, whatever it is. If I've taken all those steps and still I've not found someone, at that point, I'm not against attempting to get to know someone through, let's say, a dating app or a Muslim dating website. Provided that the dating website is professional, it's designed for serious people who really want to get married. If that's in place, why not? You could have a profile there. You could get to know some potential people. I know people who got married that way. Some failed, some succeeded, but there are some success stories. But what you need to be careful though of is the image in the community.
Yeah.
Having a profile on these platforms in most of our communities is not seen positively. So it could potentially affect your reputation, especially for sisters, for girls. Like our families in the community, they would not accept that.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be wise about it. You know,
It gives a sense of desperation, maybe.
it gives a sense of desperation and that you don't really have much honor.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the case, but that's how it's viewed
Yes.
in the community. So given all of that, I wouldn't recommend it for most of the shabab. But if you're really stuck, you've tried every route, or you live in some smaller communities and you just don't have that opportunity, I mean, at that point, why not? I mean, you can give it a try. But I wouldn't recommend it for most people. It really does affect how people look at you and your reputation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of risky too, because you pretty much have no clue who that person is. Like, how do you want to vet them? Now, there are some ways to vet them. Once you make that initial contact, I would do some research. I would, try to contact their friends, community members to kind of get some information about them. But it's kind of risky though.
It's going to be difficult because if you want to go ask community members, you already went to community events and you already seen the type of people that go to community events. So most probably, if you two are the both that type that go to community events, there's a very high chance that you guys already met before or you already seen each other before. So it becomes to that point where it gets very tricky, and especially when it comes to social image. And I'm of the belief of social image is very important. You can't be the type of, oh no, only God can judge my intentions.
No, Allah wants us to be mindful of our social image because it impacts you.
Of course.
We have many hadiths that say believers are those who are mindful of their social image. So don't be reckless with your social image. If you destroy your social image, it's going to have real life consequences for you. For you today, tomorrow you might have children. It's going to haunt them, affect them. So you have to be wise and maintain a good social image. Now, my request from brothers and sisters in the community and also families, if one of our shabab happens to have a profile on these platforms, don't judge them.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. You don't know what their circumstances are. It's not necessarily a sign of desperation or they have no sharaf, no karama, no honor. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So just be a good Muslim and don't judge them. That's what I would request from families and from, people in the community. Mother, father, if you discovered your daughter has a profile on one of these apps, don't attack her and destroy her and judge her. You don't know what she's going through. Maybe you've been too tough. I know some families who are very unrealistic. I don't know what the father is waiting for. And proposal after proposal after proposal, he rejects it. And your daughter is suffering. Haram, you're ruining her life. I know sisters who became suicidal because of very hard-headed fathers like that. So realize that she may have a valid reason why she did that. Don't judge her. Some parents are very unrealistic. Very unrealistic.
That's so sad.
It's very sad. I do know sisters who have become suicidal because of this point. Because the father is very unrealistic. He does not give them the opportunities. She's 25 and 27 and 28, and he keeps saying no, and he keeps saying no. What are you waiting for? Why? What are you waiting for? Why are you so strict? And it's really destroying the life of these people.
Is there a case of a married couple that you've seen that has surprised you? Like the situation you were like, no, like this is a terrible situation for both parties to be here, like to be in this. Like you get probably requests for people to marriage consultation.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very common. One of the appointments people seek is to do some marriage counseling between them.
Has there been a consultation that has surprised you or shocked you in a way?
Now we get the typical ones, of course, where even in your presence in the office, you're trying to mediate, they start cussing at each other.
Oof.
Yes. It gets very...
In front of a scholar.
Yes, they lose it. And when I see that, I'm like, oh, this is terrible. If they hate each other that much, or they're so disrespectful that even in the presence of a scholar, they will not respect any adab between each other, then I know that, no, I mean, I wouldn't automatically say there's no chance, but it's very terrible. I mean, that has happened before. Once with my father, he was counseling, and one of them got the pepper spray and inside the office sprayed the other side. My father, he almost suffocated because the whole room was filled with that. He had to leave. There are shocking incidents like that that sometimes happen, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, they're there for counseling, and then imagine that they start hurling insult at each other, and then the pepper sprays out.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
It gets very intense.
It gets very intense, unfortunately. And then when you analyze it, like, over what? What are you really fighting over? A lot of the issues are not serious issues. It's just ego.
Yeah.
Ego is getting in the way. They just forget that, this is a human being. Look, she's a human. He's a human living with you. Don't just overlook all that history. And sometimes this is happening and they've been married for 20 years. Like, you have all that history. Why dismiss that over a petty issue? So sometimes you do get some wild cases like that. Yeah.
What's one thing that we didn't talk about today that you think we should have?
In terms of marriage and a relationship, I think one important aspect that I find in the community is that when they're getting to know one another, sometimes that process is very drawn out. I know brothers and sisters who are talking for 2 years and they have not done their katb-kitab yet. Honestly, you're setting up yourself for failure when you're doing that. I don't think you need that much time to be in touch with her, with him. As long as you spend a few weeks getting to know one another, seeing her mindset, she sees his mindset, that's it. Ittaqil ala Allah. Go and propose, do the katb-kitab, and get married. Now, some brothers will tell me, Sayyid, but I mean, I can't get married that soon. Her family's not going to let us do a katb-kitab in the next 3 years. Tayyib, if that's not going to happen, why are you talking to her? Because now you have an emotional attachment that's developing when you talk to each other for such a long time. And then there's no commitment yet. So for all I know, if you see a better opportunity, you're going to leave, she's going to leave, and then you're left emotionally broken. I know some people, especially sisters, for years they emotionally suffer because of that. Sayyid, he was talking to me for 2-3 years. He promised he would marry me, and then he backed out. And she's left broken because she was really counting on that. So to avoid that, I discourage everyone from having that prolonged state of getting to know one another. If you're in a position to get married now, talk to someone. If you're not, don't talk.
Okay.
If you're 5 years away from realistically getting married, then it's not your business to get to know someone right now. Why are you getting to know someone right now? It's too early. So my recommendation is, if marriage is within reach, like in the next 6 months, you can do a katb-kitab realistically, then start talking. Then get that emotional attachment going. I would be okay with it. And then even the engagement, the katb-kitab, Brother Jaafar. I see this generation, there's a big timeline between the engagement and the wedding. I don't recommend that. When you're engaged for 2 years, a year and a half, 3 years, this is becoming very common right now. It creates a lot of opportunities for fights and misunderstandings. One of the things today that surprised me is I'm doing counseling sometimes, not for married couples, for the guy and the girl who are in their katb-kitab. They haven't not had a wedding yet, they're already fighting. I'm looking at that, I'm like, look, the katb-kitab period should be a beautiful, rosy period. You should be having a fun time with each other, not fighting. Like, with this attitude, you want to get married? So sometimes, honestly, I hesitate whether to counsel them. Like, if you're fighting already in a katb-kitab, I don't think you guys should even get married. You're not even married, and it's escalated like that. And part of the reason is because they know each other so long, they got so comfortable with each other, that in fact there's nothing to look forward to in a wedding. Where's the excitement?
Yeah.
Part of the excitement in a marriage is that after you get married, there's still that haya, decency.
Right.
You're still shy, right? You still want to discover their personality. That's fun. That makes sure that your marriage starts positively, because you always look back and reminisce. Oh, when we got married during the honeymoon period, things were so respectful, nice. There's something to refer back to.
Yeah.
But if I know her for 3 years, we're already fighting, then the wedding is just a public announcement. What's exciting about it?
Yeah.
It's business as usual. The day after the wedding, I'm comfortable with you like I was before the wedding. I don't think that's a good way to start marriage.
Interesting.
Keep the interaction limited. Keep that level of shyness there. It's healthy for a marriage.
The thing about the getting married quick, I'll play devil's advocate a little bit, and I'll say that a lot of people, whether it's the guy or the girl, will be on their best behavior the first month or 2 months or 3 months, because it's easy to be like very like straightforward, especially when you know, okay, this is the girl, I'm trying to impress her, all these things. So you really don't start, in my opinion, you don't start knowing the person until like you like bump heads, at least for the first time, to see, oh, how does he deal with anger? Like, do you think that's one thing that you need to know before getting in the katb-kitab period? Because if you're together for 4 weeks, you never saw how he deals with anger or how she deals with anger. Does she start screaming uncontrollably? But if we get engaged and I never saw the other person in that phase, and then after the katb-kitab we did all this, and then we fight for the first time, and then the other person is a lunatic when they get angry. Now I'm like, man, I wish I waited a little more just to see that at least. So what do you think about that?
That's a very good counter argument. But here's how I would address it. Here's how I would deal with it. Number one, I'm not saying blindly accept in 2 months. Remember, you supposedly did your research.
Yeah.
Indirectly, I asked his friends what kind of a character he has. If he's a lunatic, your research should demonstrate that to you. So don't blindly just accept. Do as much digging as you can. That way, a lot of those things will be uncovered to you. Because if I'm a lunatic, my friends know that.
Yeah.
So you need to find an indirect way to approach their friends and ask about their personality. And by the way, even though Islam is very sensitive about people's reputation and backbiting and gossip is haram, ghiba, one of the exceptions is marriage. If someone comes to me and he tells me that your friend has proposed and I'm seriously considering this, but I don't know much about your friend. You know, can you tell me about these traits? In this situation, you are allowed to tell that person. Now, I know people say, no, but you're betraying your friend by saying that. No, you're saving a potential marriage by doing that, right? If your friend is a lunatic, you need to warn this person. Now, you don't need to get specific. Tell them, look, I don't think this is going to work. Just leave it general if you don't want to go into the specifics. So do research, try to figure that out. That's number one. Number two, test your potential spouse. By the way, we have a hadith that says if you're getting to know someone, not even for marriage, just as a friend, test them. So for instance, you're getting to know her, say something out of line. Say something unusual that triggers a person.
Yeah.
And see how they get triggered. If you do it once or twice and you see how it triggers them, you'll get a sense of how they're going to react with you, right?
Yeah.
So just be a little bit creative. By the way, don't outdo this.
Yeah.
They're going to think you're crazy. Bye. I'm not. Ma'a salama. Just do it appropriately. That's the second thing. The third thing, Brother Jaafar, believe me, even if you get to know someone for 2 years, they will still not show you their real side unless you get married and they get 100% comfortable. I'll share with you a real life example.
Yes, please.
So a couple came. They had been married for about a year. And they needed counseling, like big fights. Now, they told me something that shocked me is, Sayyid, we knew each other for 8 years before we got married, and we were friends for 8 years. In fact, we were best friends. But then the girl said something that shocked me. She's like, Sayyid, but the day we got married, he changed 180 degrees. And I don't know how that happened. Now, I said to her sister, it's very unlikely that someone changes overnight. My analysis is, during those 8 years, you still didn't see that side. There was still an act. Now that you got married, the act was completely over and you saw his real side. That shocked her. But the reason why I was shocked is I would think that 8 years is a lot of time to get to know someone. But even then, not really. So don't think if you spend a year or 2 years or 3 years, necessarily you're going to figure this person out. No, believe me, there's still a level of acting. That act is removed when you feel 100% safe. I'm married now. She's stuck with me. I'm stuck with him. It's not easy to get out of this. Then I'm going to be my real self. See, that's something you'll never able to be see. You'll never be able to see, even if you're spending a year or two getting to know them. So it's still risky. Therefore, do your research properly and just go on, the main indicators. See if there are any red flags. That's much safer.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's scary to think about. And I feel like this conversation, inshallah, ya Rab, it'll put a lot of things into perspective for a lot of people that are looking forward to getting married or getting to know someone. I'm getting married next week.
Really?
Yes.
MashaAllah. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So
you mean your katb-kitab or wedding?
Wedding.
Okay.
When this comes out, inshallah, I'd be married.
Very happy for you.
Thank you so much, Sayyid. And inshallah, I will be using a lot of the things that you mentioned in my marriage. Thank you so much for having this conversation. It was fantastic. Inshallah, we have to do it again when you're back.
Inshallah. Thank you, Brother Jaafar. It was my pleasure to be with you on this podcast. Inshallah, in a few days, I'll be heading back to Iraq and I will be praying for you at the holy shrines in Najaf and Karbala.
Inshallah, ya Rab.
And may Allah shower your marriage with His rahmah, with His divine love and compassion. And inshallah, you'll have the most beautiful family.
Habib Albi, thank you so much.
حبيبي أخ جعفر يعطيك ألف عافية.